The migrant issue, I was with Curtis at Cannonball Park in Bay Ridge. He had a protest, very peaceful. We had 500 people there. Um, the migrant issue is touchy. That again, this is a national issue. Okay, we got to replace the president next year. Got to replace him. Okay, we want to close the border. You could have one of those buoys, those Hunger Game buoys. Have them from the mouth of the Rio Grande all the way down to the head of the Rio Grande. That's fine. Totally secure the border, but that's not going to be the city council's job, right? Right now, as it stands, there are three things about the migrant issue that I want to talk about. We have migrant children in schools who are not vaccinated. Migrant children in schools are not vaccinated. Okay. My kids went to public school. You need the MMR. You need a whole host of vaccines to go to school. These kids are getting a waiver. We need to have vaccination clinics with nurse practitioners that are making sure these kids are examined. These kids have a pediatrician, and these kids are getting all of the vaccines they need to stay in school. Because what unvaccinated kids do in a school is it really jeopardizes the safety of kids who are immunocompromised and can't get vaccinated for medical reasons. And that's how you have outbreaks. I was told that in CC2, which is lower Manhattan, we've had outbreaks of measles. We have had outbreaks of all of these things because these kids are not vaccinated, right? We have to address that. Let's address the problem. That's the first problem. Second problem, schools are not shelters. Public parks are not shelters. We should not be taking away resources and amenities and necessities from our New Yorkers, our kids, our fellow New Yorkers, to house these migrants. Okay, we got to figure it out. And if there's no more room, there's no more room. Sorry, there's no vacancy. You got to go somewhere else. You don't have a place to go. You got to figure it out. You can't stay here. Three, you've seen the New York Post article, and this dovetails to transit and also policing. We have young kids, 6, 9, 12 years old, riding the subways, selling candy. First off, it infuriates me because you have kids selling candy, you have kids being trafficked. The same, you have more desperate parents, are selling. Those kids could get thousands of bucks. The parents, the people here, maybe coyotes, thousands of bucks to traffic these kids. Horrible, horrible. It enrages me. I feel a sense of helplessness that I know that these kids are being victimized. But let's talk about, guys, we're all on the job, right? Can the poor cop see this kid and bring this kid in? What's the lieutenant on the desk going to say? He's like, oh, Jesus, this is gonna kill the post. That the next lieutenant coming in on the desk is going to have to send the kid to the hospital, send the kid to ACS, all this paperwork. So, I mean, everyone's going to get their chops busted for trying to address this, and then the kid's going to get out. We used to have Operation Toolbox in transit, right? It was basically, 24-hour period, 2-day period. You lock everybody up, you have full enforcement, and then you monitor how we did by the districts, by the platoon, to get everybody engaged in the effort. We need Operation Save the Children, where we have set up all of the resources available so that we can take these migrant kids, we can take them to a centralized location, get them checked out health-wise, tell the parents, listen, this is one warning. Where are your kids going to school? Get them assigned to a school. Make sure they're going. If we see your kid in the subway again, we're going to take this kid away from you. We're going to put this kid in foster care. Your kids cannot sell candy or anything else on the subway. And we have to have it's got to be a broad, holistic, all agency initiative to get these kids out of the subways, into schools, vaccinated. We have to address the problem. Let's close the border. I mean, I get called a libtard. Remember that word? I get called a libtard because I want to give these kids vaccinations and I want to get them out of the system. But these kids are here now, so we have an ethical and moral responsibility to take care of them, right? Then we close the border and send everybody. The other thing we want to do is, remember, we used to work with immigration. So you could run somebody and he wasn't here legally, and you lock him up for robbery, you lock him up for whatever, he's getting collared all the time. You could make a phone call and you give him to ICE and you get him out of the system, so he's not a problem anymore. The very least we should do, we don't cooperate with ICE anymore. The police department doesn't. The very least, anybody who commits a violent crime should be checked through E-Verify, make sure they're here legally, make sure what their status is. And if they're here conditionally or illegally, you know what? You're committing robberies, you're committing violations or petty larcenies again and again, you're recidivist. Guess what? You're not of good moral character. That should still count. When my grandparents came, when your grandparents came, you had to be of good moral character to become a citizen to stay in the United States. We got to go back at least to that standard. And that's reasonable, right? I always start with let's see what we can get the most consensus for. The most consensus for. We get more people on board and work toward that. Because the big stuff, if you just concentrate on everything, if you have this purity test, what do they say? Don't let the good, don't let the great be the enemy of the good. We have to try to address what we can, what we have a lot of consensus for.